Welcome, everybody, to Dialogues at Dusk. Today's topic is studying diplomacy, and today we are joined by Pi, a rogue mathematician and game designer trying to make sense of a strange world. How are we doing, Pi?
Doing all right.
Awesome, awesome. Um, so, yeah, you've mentioned a few times that you were interested in more or less going all in on unranked games. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that. What inspired you
Yeah,
to
I
kind
think
of make this direction?
I think it's not as much about like necessarily unranked because I do have several games that are like team versus team or something.
Hmm.
But I found that for whatever reason, in the past couple of years, I've become very allergic to games where only one person wins.
Mm.
Yeah,
I'm
I feel
still
that.
trying to figure out exactly why that happened, but um, yeah, I think it's just like I don't know, maybe it's just because of capitalism pushing a single winner, do what you do, them get the most agenda, and I just don't think that that's healthy for a society. But I don't know if that's actually what my thoughts are, or if I'm just repeating what I've heard.
Mm. That's.
It's definitely
Oh, please, I.
um it's it's definitely something I've noticed, and I think it might be one of those things where it's like where like once you've seen like enough of like how the sausage is made, you start to like see it in all the stuff that you're like consuming. So I'm like seeing all these games that are supposedly cozy but have this like single victor condition. I'm sort of like, but the vibes are all off now. And uh, like
Yeah,
there was a time when I did not pay attention to that, but now it's like I see it everywhere and I can't not see it, unfortunately.
yeah.
And we have a question from R about does cooperative count? And I feel like I have lots of complicated feelings on cooperative games. What do you
Yeah,
think, Pi?
I generally enjoy them, although biggest complaint I have is when like one person sort of takes over like alpha gaming or quarterbacking. Um, I like it to be a group effort. I think that's really what it is. Like I enjoy genuinely cooperating with people, not just like pretending. Well, like I enjoy the idea that at least if like either I'm genuinely cooperating with someone or like there's at least a chance that I'm genuinely cooperating. Like I'm a big fan of social deduction games where like, you have some guys are the bad guys and they're trying to subvert you, but you know that there's a chance that they're on your team and working with you. Um,
Co-op games have that forced allyship, right? So
yeah,
it's I personally I think Zoe, like Zoe mentioned that it could go on for a long time about if a co-op game is like fitting within an unranked framework. I think our general take is no, but certainly unranked games could lean cooperative or have cooperative elements, right? I think we tend to use the word collaborative in our design work because it's a little more it kind of steps a little further away from that forced co-op aspect. But I think in general, if you're working on something that leans collaborative or cooperative, I think you can still definitely make it unranked. But I would agree. There's usually in these unranked games, there's a little bit of friction, right? Like of what the player's relationship is or can devolve in different directions to try to simulate that real life experience.
yeah. One of my recent favorites published games is We're Doomed.
Mm.
It's a game where um, they you're it feels like a co-op game in that like you're all trying to build a rocket together, but only if you don't get enough seats, only a certain number of people will actually escape on it. So there's like that tension between you can try to cooperate and make everyone win, and that's a laudable goal, but it's just not always going to happen in practice. Yeah, it's like so I'm not fully like only unranked games, but yeah, I did say earlier R2 that I'm very into um, Hidden Traitor and team versus team games. It's just, for me, it's the question is, am I actually cooperating with at least some people? I think. Or giving the illusion that I am if it's like a game where there's only one traitor.
Yeah, right. Because like if it's a kind of cooperative game where there's no chance of somebody like kind of going on a divergent path, you're kind of assuming like a very you're assuming a world where everybody's like perfectly working together.
Right.
Sometimes like that makes for an interesting cooperative game when like the working together is the challenge. Like if you're like there's like limited communication or the communication is like the game. I think that could be fun. I don't know if I would describe it as unranked, but I'm not
Yeah, it's
100%
definitely
sure
not
why I would
unranked.
not.
Just, yeah,
Yeah.
my personal game philosophy includes more than just unranked, but yeah, definitely not ones where only one person wins. That's my big enemy right now.
Yeah, and our continues to ask like how about hidden trader, hidden team games? Now, when you say hidden trader, do you mean that there is a trader who knows they are a trader and it's hidden among the players? And I guess similarly with hidden teams, like I guess this is probably more along the lines of like a werewolf or mafia type of game I'm imagining where the hidden team is like the hidden traders. You actually have a game that's like along those lines, right, Pi?
Yeah, I actually have two. This one's one, and then I have another one that I don't have a fancy box for yet because it's still earlier in design process. But yeah, I am very into that kind of space. My one of my more recent designs is a game where most players are on the bad team and most players are trying to mess you up. And that's like trying to explore the question of what do you do if like very few people are trustworthy, because sometimes that's what it feels like with all the nonsense that goes on in the world today.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that's a big mood nowadays.
Yeah.
I feel like I used to be able to go on the internet and find reliable information. Now it feels like I'm swimming through a sea of lies.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So why don't you, one of the games that you're working on is Undering game, Ornithocracy. Would you mind like giving us a brief introduction of what
Yeah,
that game
so
is?
so Ornithocracy is a game where the quick pitch is you play as birds trying to influence the bird council's voting on a certain number of moral issues that are things that birds would care about. And the one of the core things is that you can either try to influence the council's voting on the different issues to match your preferences, or you can change your mind um, and you're considered satisfied, which is the game's term for what most people would call winning, if you get a certain fraction of your issues met.
Oh, I was wondering what that was in your shirt. It's like a little bird.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's cute.
I've played test this one a few times. I'm a big fan of this game, and I always find that I feel like when I run this with you, I give more feedback than I normally get, and I think it's because I have strong opinions about the game state. And I think part of that is because it's a political game. I think I'm subconsciously giving more feedback than I normally would. I'm really excited about this one also because it feels kind of going back to what you mentioned earlier, this idea of do I really believe in this sort of like unranked world, or was I suggested to that in some of these new design philosophies, and I'm just kind of going along with it. I think what a game to put that to trial, which is modern politics, but it's birds. What a way to kind of sort of dissect that a little bit.
Yeah, this is version from a few days ago. So like the issues are stuff that birds would care about, like should nests be required to be a standard size? Should we sign a peace treaty with the cat empire? Should government offices remain open at night? That's for owls. And yeah, it's trying to make people feel like they're taking political stances, but I've carefully tried to make it so that no actual human's going to care about those things, because I don't want actual hard feelings to develop over the game. So,
right.
Yeah.
Something that it maybe you can speak to this. I'm kind of digging in a little bit, but one of the things that my takeaways from this is that it has a bit of a sort of a tug of war feel, and feel free to correct that.
Yes.
But
that's what I use in my pitch. I say it's a multi-winner political tug of war.
Right. I think that's fascinating because really this is just to me this is another angle of just how cool Unranked Games can be. Tug of war is traditionally just you win or you lose, or I guess you could technically tie, which would usually someone's winning tug of war. But just by introducing 5 more ropes that people are tugging, suddenly you've created like a multi-victor friction, right? Which is really just interesting to me in terms of how that can develop.
Yeah. So in this board state, for example, you can, I don't know if you can see my screen that I'm sharing.
Yes.
But you can see that I want Nests, Migration, and Eagle Rebellion to fail, and I want Night Offices, Worms, and Cat Treaty to pass. So, for example, the first round, I would play a card face down and a card face down. And then starting on the second round, you also get actions, which can change people's minds or boost your influence. Like maybe I'll play this one to try to get someone onto my team on an issue. And then we'd reveal. So I'd say, hey, Goldfinch player, I want you to be more pro cats. And then they move their token on their board to be more pro cats. And then after everyone does their actions, I reveal this. I decrease eagles and increase cats. And you just do that for 5 rounds.
Amazing. And am I correct still that you as a player can change your political faction or your political beliefs, like of those different policies?
Yes. So there's one card that plant evidence that changes someone else's beliefs. There's also a card that changes your beliefs. And then there's one card that can do both.
Got it.
Very and then the other 2 just influence the center tokens.
Right.
So, and then there's also event cards that will sometimes change your stances for you. Like, not that one. Whoops.
Oh, just like in real life, when people watch something in their perspective,
yeah,
it totally changes. Yeah, cool. Definitely hits home in some interesting ways.
And then there's even one that prevents you from changing your mind on the next turn.
All players cannot play the actions, do research and dialogue. Oh, oof.
Which are the ones that change your mind. So if your feathers are ruffled, you can't change your own mind, but you can change other people's minds.
Also sounds like real life. Very, very, very clever in terms of that metaphor to some real life experiences.
Let's see, how do I stop streaming? There we go.
Also, kudos for being the first person to like throw up their game like on the call. That was very nice.
Yeah.
Very clever. That also makes our life easier for later when somebody's editing the video.
Yeah. Usually I'm like putting some footage behind us.
Yeah, R2 asks if the bird factions are preset. So you'll get a card that has a set of goals. Like it'll tell you which 3 issues to put in fail and which 3 to put in pass, and they're meant to be pretty balanced. I'm actually working on that because I've gotten some feedback from the last play test that it's very easy to be in a situation where your issues are just diametrically opposed to everyone else and you've got no chance of being satisfied. So I'm working on some ways to make that a little more balanced so it's more fair to everyone. But yeah, it's not really factions of like red team versus blue team. It's you have different political beliefs, and those beliefs are sometimes shared with others and sometimes not.
Right.
Yeah, it's like you have some issues that are important to you, and some that are aligned with other players, and some that are not aligned with them, and so it's not so much faction, so much as like I don't know, like parts of the axes that you're interested in a specific way.
Yep.
Very cool. So you have like a specific like thesis for this game. You have like particular goals that you're trying to achieve. And it sounds like some of those goals tie into why you've chosen to make this like a multi-victor game. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, so the fact that it's part of the thing is this notion that like you can buy like this notion that with politics like you can have productive dialogue with people to help like the thesis of the game is that having productive dialogue with people you disagree with is actually a useful thing. And that's represented by an action card called dialogue that depending on you choose a player and you choose an issue, and if you agree on that issue you become less polarized. If you disagree on that issue you become more extreme. And I've been trying to make that action both. It's probably the most complex action in the game, but that's kind of deliberate because I want people to stop and think about like, okay, like there's an art of changing your mind. In this game, in practice, it kind of devolves into just change your mind to go with what's actually happening on the board. But I hope that the broader message just of being able to change your mind, and the notion that you might be wrong on something is at least somewhat carried through, even though I can't really perfectly map it because it is just a game.
Even if it doesn't perfectly map, to be fair, in politics, individuals going with the voting majority or the policy majority does seem to be a thing anyway. So at the very least, I do think that simulates pretty well to a real life experience where folks want to be in the winner's group as much as possible. Quote unquote, but I'm really fascinated by this card mechanism of that demonstrates connectedness versus further polarization. That is such a true thing in real life, where you can find common ground that tends to unite forces, and the opposite tends to bring them apart. So that's a really exciting framework for a game mechanism. So I'm very excited about this game. I have recommended it to a couple folks to play. So it's cool hearing this kind of thesis be about communicating with others that you may find disagreement with to help form those bonds. That's a cool thing. Also a thing that people struggle with, which is also why this could be important.
Yeah, I'm actually, one of the things I'm gonna do. I as a mathematician, I found this beautiful pattern where if I increase the number of issues to 8, then I can make it so that any two people agree on exactly 4 issues. Which has the thing that you're always going to be agreeing with some people and disagreeing with others. And it just, although it's probably going to increase a little bit of overhead of like you have more stuff going on, I also think that it will, I am hoping, I haven't play tested it with the extra 2 issues, but I'm hoping that it will make the game a little bit more fun and just I don't know.
No, totally. I have a follow-up question, and this is where I throw a question at you that I did not send in advance, so apologies. You mentioned you're a mathematician, so I'm kind of curious. How have you found your mathematician background has influenced how you navigate unranked games, or like has it supported this design space in an interesting way that surprised you, for example, or something along those lines?
I'm not sure it really. I mean, it's influenced a lot of my game designs in general, not necessarily the unranked ones.
Totally.
Because, like, for example, in Intrusion Confusion, like I used like there's a lot of Bayesian probability I've worked out for it. In Forgotten by All, which is my other social deduction game, it's like I've been trying to like use information theory to figure out, okay, how many questions should people be asking, and stuff. With Ornithocracy, I mean, there's like I said, the recent thing of going to 8 issues and using a mathematical pattern to ensure any two people agree on exactly 4 issues to start. But also, I guess there's an element of like, yeah, I'm not really sure how much it relates to specifically unranked. It would probably, if I was designing a game more like We're Doomed, that would probably be more upfront. I guess there's also like the question of how many actions you have to change your mind, and like trying to see if I can prove that you can't all be satisfied just by pushing every issue to the right. Like, looking out for trivial cases to make everyone win that are just boring.
Right.
But yeah, this game's kind of been a bit more like designing by vibes for a lot of it, so
Totally.
yeah, I don't know.
I appreciate that answer. There's a couple mathematician designers I've spoken to, and one that we had on here, and it seems that it's always like a mix between, I am crunching the numbers, and I'm kind of just going off the vibes, which is always cool to see that reflected in design work. Cool, thank you.
It is harder to mathematically analyze an unranked game, though. Like, because there's so much more complexity to it. Like with Intrusion Confusion, it's a simple good guys versus bad guys, and there's like there's a lot of ways I was able to like prove that a certain condition can't happen. Like you can't solve someone's alignment on the first day of the game.
Yeah.
That was a big thing in why I have some of the rules on who you're allowed to inspect. And for Ornithocracy, it's a lot harder to do that kind of analysis, but there's still times like the balancing the goal setup cards where I can still.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, one of the things I just joke that sometimes Zoe and I will be doing some development work on a game, and I'll put in something absolutely ridiculous, and Zoe's like, "I got to do some math," and just vanishes. I'm like, where is Zoe going to this math cave to do secret math? I still don't understand it. I agree. I don't think there can. It's doing math in an unranked setting seems bewildering to me. But Zoe has found a way a couple times, and it comes back with an answer.
No, I mean it's definitely possible. I know like another designer, one of the Zacks, with Thieves Dilemma. I think have you talked about that on the podcast before?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, we did. What am I saying? Yes, we literally had an episode on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zach, if you're listening in, but yes, we did an episode on it. My brain just had a brain fart for a moment. Yes, we have.
Yeah, it's like that one. That one, it's like I think they were trying to make sure that there's enough cards for everyone to win, but still make it hard to do that.
Yeah.
And that's like, I guess maybe that's the core thing of like with an unranked game, you usually, I mean, depending on if you want everyone to be able to win or not, usually you want to try to make it so that that's very hard to do, but still theoretically possible.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that, like, usually when I say that I need to crunch some numbers, it's like there's like a underlying puzzle that happens when players are playing super collaboratively. And you need to do a little bit of math to make sure that, like, like how feasible it is, how hard players are going to have to work in order to like make sure everybody wins, or at what point is it impossible for everybody to win, like stuff like that. So usually it's like when you need to crunch numbers, it's usually for the collaborative play, because otherwise it's very hard to account for exactly how players are going to like engage with a game that's like unranked, because there's so many different ways players could be motivated.
Right.
I think I was reading some of your thoughts on the game, and you were at one point thinking like there's this problem where like multi in I might be mangling this, but like there's this problem where like if in a multi-victor game, like if you strictly describe like winning or losing, then players like might be put in a position where like technically they're like in order to win they have to like significantly harm like the number of players that are potentially like winning or something like that. Like there has to be some situations where it's like okay or like what's the word, valuable to like allow multiple other players to win. Am I remembering this correctly?
It's been a while. If that was me that wrote that, I don't remember it. I do remember playing a game of Nemesis Lockdown, which is also multi-victor, and the one time in recent memory that I've played it, I was like, I had to like I got to a point where the only way I could possibly win was blowing up the facility. So I blew up the facility, I set up the auto destruct, and then I ended up dying anyway. Um,
Talk about an ending.
It ended up with no winners.
Classic.
Like I could have just been nice, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it, and yeah.
Amazing.
Sometimes you gotta burn down the ship. Sometimes.
Yep.
So what is it about this multi-victor framework do you think makes it so suitable for like games that are like purely diplomacy or like incredibly dependent on like negotiation?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really don't like it when games of diplomacy have a single winner. And I think a lot of that's because how do I want to put this? Like, going into the game that the other person is going to betray you at some point, and it's just a question of when, not if. Whereas in a multi-victor game or an unranked game, there's a genuine chance that they might be able to actually be like fully collaborating with you to the end.
Right.
And I think that makes all the difference of like there's like, yeah, in a single victor game, you know they're going to betray you. In a fully cooperative game, you know they aren't going to betray you. And then there's that middle ground and that I think is the most interesting by far, where they might betray you, but that's a choice that they actually get to make rather than forced on them from the game.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's some every once in a while I'll be playing with somebody who's like not played like an unranked game before, and they'll be in this situation where they're being forced to like kind of help other players or something like that, and they'll be like, in the game theory sense, this game makes no sense. Like, why would they do that? And it's because they're so used to playing in these zero sum models that like these actions that like aren't so strictly personally beneficial don't make sense. But in like a non-zero sum environment, they start making a lot more sense. So yeah, that's cool.
I'm also always pleasantly surprised by how often there's this. So, I know we talked earlier about doing a lot of math for, the highly cooperative players, right? But I sometimes there's a weird self-solving aspect to very social games in most game environments. So, for example, if your player group is incredibly collaborative, well, it only takes one player to really put a thorn in that in a lot of situations, right? And so if one player is disrupting that and making the choice to do that, suddenly the tone of the game changes. And in highly political or diplomatic games, I found that that social aspect is a weird. I think balancing is the wrong weird, but it's a very interesting lever that is, like you said, player controlled that shifts the game in very unexpected ways. And I know that the math part is accounting for that, but it's always really exciting to me when you can create design moments where the social aspect balances for it, like by making something look a little more tasty for one player than another player. That in and of itself is like this juicy incentive that suddenly can spin things out of control or in control, depending on what you want. So,
yeah.
But yeah, sorry, Zoe, I think I interrupted you.
No, no. I think that was the end of my train of thought. Head's very in the clouds today.
You have a train in the clouds? How did you do that?
Yeah, yeah. A sleep deprivation.
Sleep and slept deprivation. That
Sleep deprivation.
slept deprivation. Perfect. Excellent. I guess Pi. One other kind of question for you regarding this subject before we kind of dig a little, move on a little bit. Is there a for the multi-victor aspects of Ornithocracy? I know you mentioned that you've taken issues that aren't exactly parallel to real life, but are you actively I guess going back to your thesis, was there something that is I'm thinking the wrong question. I guess maybe to kind of clarify, was there a system in real life that you were kind of observing, like a political system or just how people interact, and then was that kind of where that multi-victor aspect came from, or did you want to you know what I mean? Where did that kind of start? Would you say?
If I remember correctly, the game started because I wanted. So I had basically, so I have this fourth game that I don't know if either of you played it. I'm currently calling it Untitled Robot Bug Game. And
no, I haven't played that yet.
It was originally a multi-victor game. I think I just independently came up with the idea of multi-victor. And I ran into some issues with it, and I realized it was too complicated, and I decided to shelve it. This was way long ago because I ended up bringing it back, but I was I'm going to start over. So I had this idea of what if it was just you're trying to move you're trying to move tokens up and down a tracker after a lot of brainstorming trying to figure out how to simplify the game. I just was I'll just make a whole new game. And then I think I got involved with this organization. Well, not really involved. I received emails from an organization called Braver Angels that's trying to work to heal a lot of partisan divides in the United States. And I just had this idea of well, what if you could change your mind on the issues? And that really brought the game to surprisingly close to where it is now. I mean, the actual mechanics of how you move the issues and stuff have changed over time, but that core of you can change your mind and just moving the issues was just something I came up with that I never really saw the need to get rid of.
Right.
So.
Makes sense. Awesome. And I also just realized earlier on when I was hey, I want to ask you a question not on the list. I realized that is on the list.
I
So
wasn't gonna say anything
yeah, I'm
'cause
going to say it. So for everyone watching, turns out I didn't ask an improv question there. My apologies. Zoe could fix that in post. We'll just shift the questions around. Sorry, Zoe, go ahead.
um yeah, so how do you think that multi-vector games are going to shape the future of your like design works, your games moving forwards?
Yeah, I I don't know. Like I'm very much a quality over quantity person. So like I I Intrusion Confusion I'm pretty much done with. Ornithocracy, I still have a few more things I want to figure out. And then I have this idea for my fifth game
Mm,
after Forgotten by All and Untitled Robot Bug Game that I I have the main like hook, but I genuinely don't know if I want it to be a co-op or a multi-victor. There's like co-op. I'm not really sure how to limit communication because, like I said, I don't want to just design a game where everything is open and one player can dominate.
mm,
But I also like it's I I've thought about how to make it multi-victor, and it's not trivial to do so.
mm.
Um, in a meaningful way, especially if I don't want player elimination. It's so when I actually get around to designing that game, I'm probably going to have to take a careful look at like, okay, do I want this to be? I definitely don't want it to be a single winner, but yeah, like, do I go the route of co-op or do I go the route of multi-victor? And I think, yeah, I'm not in the headspace to actually make that decision yet, but we'll see what happens when we get there.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe as you maybe as you get maybe as you get more experience with ornithocracy, maybe you'll discover some like multi-victor tricks you could apply to that design to potentially make it less non-trivial, slightly more trivial.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the if this game ends up being unranked, it'll be my third or probably actually second because Untitled Robot Bug Game's probably going to take longer to finish, but third in order of when I started the game. And I think yeah, it's like they're all kind of different. Like so I'm not really sure exactly how much can really be applied because it's like
Hmm.
you've got a political simulator, a game that's pretending it's not an RPG, and then defend the castle from invading enemies kind of situation. Um, and like yeah, there's definitely some levers that are the same, but they're also quite different games, and um, yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about it before, and Zoe had a great video on this, which is not every game can be multi-victor. And we've talked to other
Yeah.
designers how like some games like it's just like I've gone down this gauntlet and it's just not happening, right? And so I think it's kind of you pick the story you want to tell kind of thing, and that's where the design work kind of takes you, in my opinion. I think the one thing that I'm most excited by is when designers play in the sandbox of multi-victor. I think it gives a lot of insight to when a single victor game feels really strong and applicable as opposed to the default. I'm much more excited about design work that is like cooperative or single victor from someone who's like, I've explored these options, but the story that I want to tell, the thesis that I have for this game, is based on this outcome experience. And I think it actually weirdly makes it stronger because they've explored these other worlds in terms of what they want to present and what they want to argue with their game.
Yeah, I remember playing a game once where I was like this really felt like it needed to be multi-victor,
Yeah.
but the problem was that it was it was too far along in the design, and I felt like changing it to multi-victor would have involved some radical
Totally.
changes that I thought the designer was not in the mood for, so I just neglected to give that spiel.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it
I
was
feel that way a lot.
Yeah, I think it was Joe Kell on here who was talking about how tough it is to turn a existing game that you've put a lot of time into and then making it multi-victor. And I think I've had that issue myself. Oh, Joe says in chat, I've never talked before. You can't bring me into this. Too late for that. So it's challenging because you have to you've created a core. Your game is making some sort of argument already, and it's changing what that is.
But every once in a while, I'll see a game that feels like it's already multi-victor, but it was forced to become single victor. And I think those situations are fascinating.
Yeah, that's a
like,
tough one.
I can't remember the game exactly, but there was this game I played that had like these asymmetric goals, and and it was like kind of like Root in a sense, where you're like you're the factions function like asymmetrically, and they're all trying to get to a certain point threshold, but it's like but there's a lot of ways that those factions are like helping each other along the way, so it's like it seems like it would not be that hard to just change it into a threshold or give every player one last round to try like catch up in the round end or something like that.
Yeah. Joe says in chat, Viticulture with like 2 rules changes would be a compelling multi-victor game. I could see that.
I have not played Viticulture. I think I've heard of it, but I there's so many games that I'm forgetting which one it is.
Yeah, the multi-victor to single victor pipeline that I see with some designers into publishers is a bit of a pain point frustration that hopefully we can fix over time. Yeah, cool. Pi, I guess we're coming up to the end of the discussion here. Is there any other like insights or advice that you have for designers exploring like multi-victor games or unranked games for the first time or kind of getting into this world?
I mean, the best advice is just play some. I mean, like We're Doomed is a good one that's published. Or if you're in designer spaces like Break My Game, find multi-victor games and play them. But I think also, I'm also wanting to explore like the Victorless side of things with Untitled Robot Bug Game, where it's like you get to completely decide how you feel about the situation. It's like the key hook there is that it doesn't force anything on you, and like I think there's many different ways to go about it, and but I just want to see more of them. Like, there's so many single victor games out there. Like, I want to be in a situation where everyone knows, or like half of gamers know. Like, I want to be in a situation where as many people know what worker placement is as know what multi-victor is.
Ooh, now we're cooking. Big fan of that. Okay. We got some work to do then, folks. All right. Well, how can we find you on for folks that are interested in following your games and following what you're working on? How can folks find you on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, I want to start putting stuff on my personal website, but I've been kind of slacking on that. Mm-hmm. But it's I think let me just double check that I have the right URL. Yeah. Yes. And this does have my actual name on it, which I'm not that shy about now that I'm going to be having games and math research papers published. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, I'm on Break My Game pretty frequently with stuff. I bring Ornithocracy relatively frequently, and when that gets done, I'm gonna probably start bringing Robot Bug Game pretty frequently.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I have not successfully published a game yet, so um, when I do, I will um, figure out what to do from there.
Party.
I'll probably, yeah, start putting more stuff on my website and yeah, just I don't know.
Well, I'm excited to see what you
Just
come up with. Yeah, I'm excited to see what you're working on, and I'm excited for the bug game. I think we talked about that a little ways back. I'm excited to run that, and also really loving Ornithocracy. So thank you for making your games.
You want to run the bug game at some point, like as in be the narrator?
Sure. Yeah, I love being a narrator, so I'm happy to do that. Yeah, whatever you want me to do, I'm down. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I that is actually something I've noticed. Another thing to point out. Um, I've seen so two of my favorite published games, Blood on the Clock Tower and Zendo, both have a like moderator,
hmm,
and their job is to ensure that the other players have fun.
hmm.
Which in itself is kind of unranked because they're not in
Ooh,
competition with the other players.
that is a really interesting observation that I did not think of until you just said that out loud. Huh.
So, like, even though technically Zendo's a single winner game with the normal players, it has a slight unranked feeling for the moderator, and because they sort of, yeah,
Yeah, the moderator just wants an outcome.
yeah, they want an outcome. It's like that's I guess
Huh.
that's the main thing with multi-victor games is like you want an outcome, and that outcome isn't necessarily dependent, might or might not be possible to achieve with other people achieving their outcomes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that because like yeah, the storyteller in the clock tower like it's not it is kind of like playing their own victorless game because they're kind of just facilitating like the players' actions and stuff. But I think they're like the rule book even says like when you get a choice like feel free to make like the most interesting decision or something
Make the
like
most
that.
interesting
Like
decision, help the losing side. I think Clock
mhm,
Tower says help the losing side. Um,
yeah.
Endo, I think it says like just like be consistent, try not to give an unfair advantage to certain players. But yeah, it's and
There's
like
some interesting game design possibilities in this. So is that something that you're
yeah.
exploring with your game?
Yeah, I mean, Forgotten by All has a sort of moderator, but I gave them an alignment,
Hmm.
mostly just because it worked for that game, and I wanted them to feel like they were making interesting decisions. Um, uh, Robot Bug Game feels like right now the moderator's like more like a dungeon master or just a traditional moderator that their job is to make sure players have fun. So yeah, I think yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. And yeah, just I don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah, that reminds me of Vast. I always thought of like the cave, the or the mansion player as being like a weird like moderator, but they could still win by moderating super hard,
That
making it so balanced.
that role blew my mind when I first played that game. I
Yeah,
thought it was one of the cool. That is still one of my favorite characters in a game ever. Just being the
yeah,
cave
yeah,
that everyone's in is such a neat thing. Yeah.
yeah. You could play as the knight, dragon, or the cave.
Yeah, a cave, 100%.
Yeah,
100, I have a 100% win rate as cave too, by the way. So
yeah.
yeah,
I think
1v1
I
me
do
as
too.
cave. All right, okay,
Well,
cave versus cave, Zoe. Let's go.
Wait, is that because you've only played one game, or is that because it's?
I'm not going to take any further questions this time. But Pi, it's been great having you on. Fantastic as always chatting with you, and looking forward to seeing what you're working on.
Yep.
Have a great one, everyone.
Questions from the audience of one.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh wait, Joe's typing something.
Oh, hold on. Joe's typing.
Oh, cave versus
Cave
cave.
versus cave.
Whoa, what?
There's a game. It's a game called Cave versus Cave.
Caverna, cave versus cave. All right. Okay, Zoe and I, we're going to have to play that. I'll find the game, and we will have to objectively play this game. All right.
1v1 me and Caverna.
You got it. Be well, everyone. Thank you for everything.
Live long and prosper.